Hey crafters, Lisa here from Fun Stuff Crafts. So glad you could join me for another Inspiration Friday. So a lot of you have seen my sewing tutorials and I absolutely love to sew. But one of the things is, what do you do with all your scraps? So I've come up with a couple projects that I've been using some of my scraps for, and I thought it would be fun to put together a Scrap Buster series. So today is going to be the first in a series of Scrap Buster projects that you can do. So today we are going to work on this cute rug mat, or mug mat, I should call it. And I want to show you how to do it. And I just use scrap pieces of material. So I don't know about you, but I've got a tub that I keep in my craft room and I just throw my scraps in, and then what to do. So hopefully over the course of the next couple weeks, I'm going to share some really good ideas. And guess what? This is a great idea for Mother's Day or for a cute housewarming gift. Just think about, grab a Dollar Tree mug, put in a few bags of tea, and do one of these mug rugs, and it'll be a great little gift. So give me a second. I'm going to get my camera angle changed, and we are going to get making. But hey, before I go, if you are new to my channel, make sure that you click on that subscribe button and click on the bell, and YouTube should alert you each time I upload a new video. So give me a second, and we are going to get making. Okay, so let's get going on this Scrap Buster. This is the first of my Scrap Buster series, and I just thought it would be some fun tutorials to show you how I like to use up a lot of my scraps. Now, I will tell you, underneath my sewing machine, I have got a bucket that I just throw my scraps into. So what I did this morning is I went ahead and I grabbed out some scraps. And I absolutely love sunflowers. So we're going to use up some scraps that I have from sunflowers. So I'll show you exactly kind of sizes, what you're kind of looking for in a minute. I just want to go over all your supplies. These are a few more cuts that I've got from my scrap pile. I've also got this piece of batting. It's 100% cotton batting, just happen to have some left over. So we definitely are going to want that for your rug mat. Pair of scissors. You could definitely use your rotary cutter if you want. I'm just using scissors for this one. We will need a pen to make one marking. And then, of course, you're going to need thread and a bobbin for your sewing machine when we hop over there. So this project is fun because it is a sew and quilt as you go project. So these mats can be made or rugs, whichever way you want to call them, a mat or a rug. I think I use it interchangeably. They can be made any size you want. I will let you know that I have cut mine 10.5 by 5.5. And so I'm going to end up, after my seams and after my trimming, to be about a 10-inch by about a 5-inch. Now, some people will say, well, Lisa, you only need half of that for your coffee cup. But what I like to do is I like to make these a little bit longer, so that way I can have my cup of tea or my cup of coffee on one side, and then I can have my snack, like my granola bar or something sitting right here. So that's why I've chose to make this size. You guys make the size that you want. So what I like is I like for my rug to have a solid back. So we're going to make this be the backing. So we're going to set this off to the side because we use this after we get everything else attached on. And so I've cut that the exact same size. And then the next piece is I like to have half of mine be a solid color. You could do this completely all with your scraps and go on a diagonal, which is what I'm going to show you today. But I like to just kind of split it in half. So because I'm going to split it in half, I've already taken my pen on this side and I've just literally folded this in half, and I found where my center was. I've put a line down. So I know that this is where I want to make sure all my scraps cover in a diagonal. So if I go ahead and just lay this here, you can see that that's going to cover a half, and I'm definitely got some excess here, and we're going to trim that all up when we're done. But the important part is when you're working and you want to do it on the diagonal, I like to take my scraps. Now I've folded this because I'm going to cut this. I like to lay out my scraps just to make sure that I am covering from side to side. Really important to make sure that you're able to cover all the way. And that way I can kind of judge, hey, do I have the right size of material available to use? And so I'm just going to go and see how I can. I've got a little bit longer one there because that's a longer piece. Then I'm going to come down here, and then I'm going to end it with another piece of that really pretty blue sunflower. So I know that I'm covering up everything. And if I put my half piece on, oops, you can see that basically that's what my mat is going to look like. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to attach these. We're going to attach these diagonal ones first, and then we're going to put the square on. And then what we're going to do is we are going to attach our back piece, and then we are going to turn it around, and then we're going to do some quilting. So I can't wait to show you what this all turns out like. So we're going to hop over the sewing machine. I'm going to thread my machine with this yellow, with my yellow bobbin. And then we are just going to do most of the rest of this project right over at the sewing machine. So I'm over at the sewing machine and I've got my machine all threaded. And I am going to start out with my first piece of fabric. And remember, I kind of measured this one up so it was going to fit. So I'm actually going to, just to save, because I love my sunflowers and I might want to use this on another project, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. And what I want to do is this very first one, I'm going to sew a little bit different than I'm going to be doing the rest of them. So I'm making sure that my tip is covered. You guys can see the tip right there. Okay, I'm making sure that is covered. And I am just going to take my sewing machine and I am going to sew from edge to edge. Now I have my sewing machine at a standard thread width at 2.5. And I am going to just use the guide of my foot to guide me where I'm going to be sewing. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew right along there. And that is just my first one that I'm putting on, okay? No reason to do a secure stitch at the end or the beginning of these because we're going to be top stitching over the top of everything. So then my next one, I'm actually going to do the same thing. Some of these pieces were a little bit bigger, and so I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing, and I'm just going to trim them up. Now this one I want to have laid here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it right sides together with the other one. I want to make sure that when it turns back that it's covering all of my edge. So you can see that I'm going to be off a little bit there. Okay. And so this one I am going to stitch right down there, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to use my foot to guide me. So I've got a nice straight stitch, and then I'm just going to bring that up. And then what I like to do now is what you would call a finger press, and I'm just going to bring this over and I'm just going to press this just with my finger. Okay, we're going to do our quilting later. So right now I need to make sure, see how I've got that end sticking out here? I need to make sure my next piece is going to be long enough to cover that. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I like to do is just lay it right where those edges are, a little bit above it. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, it's a little bit reverse here. I am laying this the wrong way, Lisa. So that's a good catch, you guys. I had that laid the wrong way. And see how I want to make sure that I'm covering my edges. Okay. And so I'm going to go ahead, and I just went from edge that's showing there to edge that's showing down here. It's going to make my piece be a little bit not exact, even diagonal. But you know what, you guys? This is what you guys want these to be. Okay. So whatever design you want to do. So then I'm just going to bring this across and I'm going to finger press it and see what I mean by it being a little bit skinnier here and a little bit wider here. But there's nothing wrong with that. So now I'm going to take my next piece and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I am going to cut right there. And here we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring this one up a little bit further. I don't want so much of that to show. So I'm going to bring it up. I know that my line was right there, so I'm good and I'm covered there. So I'm going to go ahead and just put my foot down right there and do this next stitch. So as you can see, I'm putting right sides together. I'm just sewing down through there. And then I got one more piece I'm going to add in there. And I almost don't need to. That corner's barely poking out, but I really want to finish it up with this pretty blue. So again, I'm going to pull that up and I am going to go ahead and just stitch right down. And we'll do that same little finger press over. And we've got all of this piece of that half of the project done. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and trim this up just a little bit. Okay, and so I'm just going to flip it over. And you know what? I'm going to do this right at the machine. And I'm just clipping right next to my batting. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to clean it up a little bit more. But this just helps me really be able to see what I've got going. Okay. And then here on this side, I do want to trim off a little bit of that. And then let's take our piece here. And I think I'm going to move that over just a little bit more so. And because I left these and I stitched so far across, some of these colors are going to show through. So because of that, I'm going to try a different print just to see. Yeah, this one might be a little bit busier, so it's not going to show. So I could have stopped sooner. And then that way I could have got away with this lighter color, but that's okay. So let's see. I think this one's still going to work. Yep. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this just right sides together. I'm going to make sure none of my batting is showing through. Whoops. And I am going to put a stitch right down there. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and finger press this one. And that's where we've got most of our mat done on the front part, okay? So what I'm going to do now is we're going to take this back over to the cutting area, and I want to give this a good press with my iron, and then we'll trim it up and we'll add the back. We're at the cutting table. I've got my iron all heated up, and I'm just going to really, I just want to give it a nice press. And the reason why I'm doing that is I just want to make sure that my diagonal pieces are all pressed in there really, really nice. So now what I want to do is I like to, at this point in time, you could use your rotary cutter, but I am just going to give this a trim all the way around with my scissors. And I'm using that batting as my guideline. And so we're just trimming off any excess that we have. The reason why I really like this method is I'm not going to have to put on any binding on it. We are going to sew this together, then we're going to quilt it. And I just love how these turn out. So there we are with it as it sits right now. Now what I want to do is let's go ahead, and I'm just going to give this a quick little iron too. I'm going to grab some clips. Always have my clips handy. And what we're going to do is we're going to clip this right in place. Now, we will want to leave a space open because we are going to turn this right side out, and then we're going to add on our quilting part to it. But for right now, I'm just going to clip it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave an opening. Actually, I think I'm going to leave my opening over on this side. So let's go ahead and just clip. And the reason why I like to do lots of clips is I just don't want it to move when I get over to the sewing machine. And so I'm just going to mark with my pen just to leave an opening. I always like to make my corners with my sewing machine and the stitch. You never want to leave it open here. Always leave it open on a side. Some people really like to do it here. I'm just going to go ahead and grab right here on my side. So what we're going to do is we are going to start sewing here. We're going to do a good back stitch to secure it. We're going to go around, sink our needle, pivot, sew all the way down here, across, and back up to here. Okay, so I'm going to hop over to the sewing machine really quick. I'm going to do that, and then I'll be right back. Over at the cutting table, and I have done my seam all the way around. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to first clip the corners, and I just like to get real close up there, and you don't want to cut right at the through the thread at all, but you just want to clip those corners. So I'm going to clip all 4 corners. One thing I like to do is I also like to just taper this off a little bit just to get some of that bulk out of the way. And the reason why I do that is we're going to turn these, and it just makes that corner lay just a little bit nicer. So not only clipping your corner, but just slimming down that seam, or excuse me, that salvage, that edge coming into where your corner is. Then what we're going to do is we are going to turn this right side out. Now, if any of you have seen my sewing videos before, you know I love my clover turner, and so I am going to use that. So let's look at these layers here. We have got our batting, we've got our top, and we've got our bottom. You're not going to turn it through that hole. You're going to turn it through where you've got your good fabric to your good fabric. And just take your time to push this through, and it will all come through that little hole that we just left. And then what I'm going to do is I just poke it out kind of with my fingers first to get it started nice, especially in these corners where we left the opening. And then I'm going to use my clover point turner, and I am just going to very carefully poke out my corners. You don't want to poke so hard that you poke a hole in your corner. Definitely don't want to see that clover turner come through your fabric. Okay, so we've got it turned. And oh, I love the look of this one already. I just think this one's going to be so bright and cheerful on my desk. So I'm going to pull through, just kind of pull together that side that I know I have open, and I'm really going to give it a good press. I do have water in my iron, so I am pressing down my steam. And so just going to give it a good press. So what I'm going to do now is we are going to hop over the sewing machine, and I am going to do a outside stitch all the way around. The main part of that is to catch this opening. We want to make sure that's nice and cut. The back of it looks so pretty right now. Looks like I might have a little, yep, look at that. I could see right through. I had a little piece of fabric stuck in there. So I want to grab that before I shut my opening. Get that piece out. Just, oh, we got another one down there. That's one thing you got to be careful of when you use that lighter color fabric is definitely you can see things through there. But this is going to be my top side. So we're going to do stitch around all the way around to just give it a nice finish. But you don't need to stop there. I am also going to quilt this, and I am going to do a diagonal all the way across. Okay, so we're going to hop over to the sewing machine, and I'll show you all those stitches. We're going to bring it back over here, give it another good press, and I am going to be ready to take a coffee break with my coffee cup and a snack. So join me over at the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what happened, but for some reason, my recording didn't take as I was over at the sewing machine doing my last top stitching. So I want to show you guys, and it might be a little bit easier to see here. I top stitched first all the way around, and then I did a diagonal, as you can see my stitching. And on the other side, it's a little bit harder to see, but I started out doing the diagonal, following my diagonal pieces, and then I continued on down. And that top stitch I did at 3.5 stitch length. I just like to do my top stitching that way. Remember, the top stitch around the outside, the main purpose of that was to close that end that we needed to get closed, and it's all enclosed in. So, apologize for that. Not sure what happened to my recording, but I did want to show you the detail of that quilting that I had done. So the last piece to do here is to go through, and I just like to clip all of my threads, and just using my cute little snips here. I found those instead of using my seam ripper. And I'm just going to go through and make sure I have them all clipped. I'm going to give this one more quick press, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make me a cup of coffee and grab my morning snack, and I'm going to show you how I put this to use right on my desk. So I hope you enjoyed this, my first in a series of scrap busters. Got a couple more coming up. And I would love if you would leave a comment down below if you've got an idea for a great project that you do with your scraps. I would love to showcase it on one of my upcoming videos. So we have got our little rug mat totally ready to go. I'm going to go over and pick up, grab myself a cup of coffee. Just trying to show you the whole thing here. I see one more thread I forgot. Sometimes that always helps when you get it up closer. But see how I have got that all done. And then if I flip it over, you can see that I've got the quilting on the other side too. So let me go make a cup of coffee. We'll put it to good use. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And please leave a comment down below if you have got a great scrap buster project.